They say you can tell a lot about a person by the company they keep. If that's true, then my wife Rachel was royalty. Our social circle revolved around her, always her. Amber, Sophie, Lena, and Brooke, they weren't just her best friends, they were her court, orbiting her like planets around a brilliant sun. And me? I was the shadow beside her glow. The man at her side, her husband, but never the center. Not really. I used to think it didn't matter. That being the quiet one in a group of loud, beautiful women was a kind of peace. I didn't need to be the star. I just needed Rachel. And for years, it was enough. Rachel and I met at a gallery opening downtown, back when I was a broke art teacher and she was the rising queen of a luxury marketing firm. She liked my quiet, said it grounded her. And for a while, we were magnetic in the way opposites attract. She thrived in attention, and I was content in the corners of rooms she commanded. We got married 6 years ago. Since then, our home became the hub of everything. Wine-soaked dinner parties, girls' nights that stretched until morning, curated couples retreats. Rachel curated it all, even the people. She collected friends like fine wines. And she made sure they always came back for more. Amber was the firebrand, red lips, quick wit, always first to pour another drink. Sophie, the thoughtful one, quiet and observant, her eyes always a little too wide. Lena was sharp and stylish, always whispering the next big secret before anyone else. And Brooke was dangerous in a different way. She flirted with her eyes, her words, even her silences. To them, I was Noah, Rachel's husband. The polite one. The one who made great cocktails and remembered birthdays. The one who didn't interrupt when they were talking about skincare routines or what some guy did wrong on their last date night. I was harmless, or so they thought. But things started to shift that night. It was a Saturday dinner, just the 6 of us. Our dining room glowed with amber light, jazz playing low through the speakers. Rachel wore one of those silky dresses that barely clung to her frame, moving like liquid with every step. Her hair was up, exposing the soft curve of her neck, a neck I used to kiss with hunger before we became more partners than lovers. I watched her laugh, head tilted back, glass of Malbec in hand. She looked like a painting. I loved her, even then, even through the beginning fractures. But something about that night felt different. Sophie sat across from me, quiet as always, but her eyes kept landing on me. Not just once or twice. Long, lingering glances, like she was reading me, or maybe imagining something. Amber, sitting beside me, laughed a little too loud at one of my stupid jokes about the wine tasting like strawberries in heat. She touched my arm when she laughed, and left her hand there for a beat too long. I noticed. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. And Rachel didn't. Or if she did, she didn't care. She was too busy telling Lena about some influencer client of hers and how people will believe anything if you wrap it in just enough shine. I remember the exact line because it felt like something she wasn't just saying about marketing. At one point, I got up to clear the plates, and Sophie offered to help. In the kitchen, her arm brushed mine. It was nothing and everything. She smelled like lilac and something darker beneath it, something like curiosity. When I looked at her, she blushed, but didn't look away. "You're always so calm," she said. I shrugged, drawing a glass. "It's just dinner." "No," she said, softer now. "It's not. Not really." We didn't say anything else. But when she passed the wine bottle to me, her fingers grazed mine, intentionally. It was subtle, electric, dangerous. Back at the table, I could feel Amber watching me now too. Her gaze was heavier, less playful. Rachel still hadn't noticed. Or maybe this was all part of some new game she hadn't told me about. Later, when the night ended and the women left in a flurry of air kisses and laughter, Rachel turned to me in the hallway and said, "They adore you." I stared at her. "Do they?" She smiled, a small, smug smile. "You're like the house pet. Quiet, handsome, non-threatening." The words stung more than they should have. We had sex that night, a rare occurrence lately, but even that felt curated, like she was performing for someone who wasn't even there. When she came, it felt like she did it out of duty, not desire. I lay beside her afterward, staring at the ceiling. Something had changed, or maybe it had always been this way, and I just stopped pretending. That night stayed with me, not because of what happened, but because of what it started. A current began moving beneath the surface. Subtle, electric, dangerous. And Rachel, the sun of our little galaxy, had no idea her orbit was about to collapse. It started with a fight about groceries. Or at least, that's what sparked it. Rachel had asked me 3 times to pick up the organic almond butter, not the regular one. And I, distracted, tired, human, brought back the wrong jar. You don't listen, she said flatly, tossing it onto the counter like it had personally offended her. It's just almond butter. No, she snapped, spinning on me. It's everything. You don't listen. You don't care. You don't even try anymore. I stared at her, incredulous. Because of almond butter? It's not about that, she said, eyes flashing. It's about us. We're stuck in a loop, Noah. You don't see it? We're just going through the motions. And there it was, the real thing underneath the petty argument. The dissatisfaction she'd been suppressing, or maybe nurturing like a grudge. I leaned against the counter. So what? You want a divorce over nut spread? She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. I'm talking about evolving. About not pretending this is 1952. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I felt the floor shift under me. She crossed her arms. We've been married 6 years, Noah. 6. We don't even touch each other anymore unless it's obligatory. Don't you want more? I wanted to say, I want more of you. But instead, I asked, what are you getting at? She hesitated, and then smiled that rehearsed, calculated smile I'd seen her use in meetings or when charming strangers. An open marriage. I blinked. You're not serious. I'm dead serious, she said. I've done a lot of reading. It's a modern arrangement. People thrive in it. It's not about sex. You sure? Because it sounds exactly like it's about sex. It's about freedom, exploration, growth. We've both outgrown monogamy, Noah. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. She said it so smoothly, like she'd practiced. Like this had been on her mind for a while. Probably whispered into wine glasses with Lena or Brooke or Amber. Hell, maybe all of them. Maybe they voted on it. I didn't answer right away. I just walked out of the kitchen. She followed. Come on. Don't shut down. This isn't me asking for permission. This is a conversation about what our marriage looks like going forward. You don't get to drop a bomb like that and act like you're being reasonable. It's not a bomb, she said. It's evolution. We're adults. We can redefine our terms. I turned to face her. So what? You want to fuck other people, and I'm supposed to say thank you for the opportunity to grow? She didn't flinch. You're being insecure. And you're being reckless. I'm being honest. And if you really think our marriage is built on almond butter and missionary sex once a month, then maybe this is exactly what we need. The silence that followed was heavy, but in it, I saw something in her eyes. Not love, not regret, excitement. She wanted this. Not to fix us, to free herself. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. 2 days passed before she brought it up again. This time over coffee, like she was asking what movie we should watch that night. I'm seeing someone Thursday. Just like that. My stomach turned. Already. I've had a nap for a while, she said casually, stirring oat milk into her coffee. I just wasn't sure when or how to bring it up. That's comforting. Noah, she said, her voice softening. This doesn't have to be a threat. We can do this. You can see other people too. Maybe it'll bring us back together stronger. Back together? We hadn't even officially split. I wanted to tell her no, to draw the line. But something in me, something prideful, wounded, stopped me. Fine, I said. You want to be open? Let's be open. She beamed. Not lovingly, triumphantly, like she'd won something. That night, she texted her friends. I heard their laughter through the phone. Amber's name came up more than once. Sophie's too. You're so brave, Amber texted, according to Rachel. You're doing what the rest of us only fantasize about. That line stuck with me. What the rest of us only fantasize about. I wondered if the circle was as tight as I thought it was, or if it was really just a breeding ground for buried desires. Rachel's date came and went. She came home late, her cheeks flushed, a new perfume on her skin, not the one I gave her last Christmas. She didn't lie, just said, it was nice, and got in the shower. When she emerged, wearing nothing but a towel, she looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Or worse, like I didn't matter anymore. I lay in bed that night listening to the shower run, wondering if the water could really wash off someone else's hands. Wondering if she'd moaned for him the way she used to for me. If she moaned at all. The next day, Amber came over. Rachel had meetings. Amber said she just wanted to check in on me, to make sure I was okay. She brought wine, smiled a lot, and when I poured us each a glass and sat across from her, she looked me dead in the eye and said, She told us what she's doing. The open thing. I raised an eyebrow. She said you agreed. That it was your idea too. Did she? Amber nodded slowly, dragging a finger around the rim of her glass. I think she takes you for granted. I stared at her. Amber had never been subtle, but this was new. She smiled, slow and lazy. I always wondered what it'd be like to be with a man who actually listens. Something in the air shifted. Heavier. Thicker. Like a storm waiting on the edge of the horizon. And in that moment, watching Amber bite her lip, her gaze low and inviting, I realized something terrifying. Rachel didn't just open the door to our marriage. She cracked open something deeper. And I wasn't sure either of us could control what came through. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. Rachel had left earlier than usual. Said she was heading out to meet a client for late lunch. That phrase had become code lately. Vague, flexible, and carefully untraceable. I didn't ask who. I didn't ask where. I'd stopped asking questions I didn't want the answers to. I stayed home. Worked on some freelance sketches I'd been dragging my feet on. The light outside was soft, autumnal, filtering through the windows like a reminder of how fast time slips by when you're not paying attention. The air inside our house was too still. Amber texted around 2. Just checking in on you. Mind if I drop by? I hesitated, then typed back. Sure. Doors open. I didn't clean up. I didn't change. I didn't prepare myself the way I normally would before a guest arrived. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. She came in without knocking, wearing a soft cardigan over a white tank top, jeans ripped just enough to suggest style. Her hair was up, casual, effortless. She held 2 takeaway cups of coffee like peace offerings. I figured you might need something warm, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I took one. Thanks. She settled into the armchair across from me, curling her legs beneath her like she lived here. It was strange how natural it felt. She glanced around. Quiet in here, she said. I nodded. It usually is now. Amber studied me for a moment. You don't seem surprised by what Rachel's doing. I'm not. And you're okay with it. I sipped my coffee, buying time. I don't think that matters anymore. She tilted her head. Of course it matters. You're her husband. Technically. That made her frown. You're not technically anything. You're Noah. You're the man who built this life with her. The man who. She caught herself, then let out a sigh and leaned forward. Do you want to know something? I raised an eyebrow. Sometimes, she said. I wonder what would have happened if I met you first. The room grew still again, but not in the same empty way. This was heavier, more charged. I used to watch you, she went on, voice softer now. At those dinners. You always seemed steady, like you were actually listening when people talked, not just waiting for your turn. I didn't think you noticed. Amber smiled. Rachel never did. Not really. We sat like that for a while. No flirting, no seduction, just 2 people sitting in the ruins of something someone else set on fire. Then she stood up and crossed the room, slowly, hesitantly, and sat down beside me on the couch. Do you miss her? She asked. I miss who I thought she was. Amber nodded, looking down at her hands. I think we all do. There was something about the quiet that followed, not awkward, but charged with everything we weren't saying. Her knee brushed mine. She didn't move it. I'm not trying to complicate things, she said. I think things are already complicated. She looked up, met my eyes, and for a second, the air shifted. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic or frenzied. It was a slow, mutual gravity. A lean. A touch. A kiss that surprised both of us in its tenderness. It wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about being seen. It was about feeling wanted by someone, anyone, after months of being invisible. When we pulled apart, she searched my face. Was that a mistake? I shook my head slowly. I don't know. Amber's voice was barely above a whisper. I think Rachel's been trying to prove she can have everything. That she can rewrite the rules and still be the center of it all. But I don't think she sees what she's letting go of. She stood, straightened her cardigan, ran a hand through her hair. I should go. You don't have to. I know, she said. But I think if I stay, we'll cross a line we can't come back from. She paused at the door. You deserve someone who sees you, Noah. Remember that. Then she was gone. That night, Rachel came home around 11. Her heels clicked down the hallway like nothing had changed. She smelled like cologne I didn't recognize. Her eyes were glossy from too much wine or too much pretending. She kissed my cheek like she always did, automatic, distant, and headed upstairs. I watched her go. Later, She sent me a photo from the bedroom. Just her legs, freshly waxed, in silk sheets, captioned with a winking emoji. Still want me? I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through my messages. Amber hadn't texted since she left, and I hadn't either. But her words rang in my head like a quiet bell. You deserve someone who sees you. I turned off the light and let the darkness settle in. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The weather turned colder that week. The kind of cold that crept through windows no matter how well you sealed them. The kind that made your hands linger around coffee mugs too long, just to feel something warm. Rachel was gone again, a networking retreat upstate with some colleagues. Or at least that's what she said. I stopped tracking her locations. It felt like trying to count ripples in water while someone kept dropping stones. I didn't tell her about Amber. Not because I was hiding anything, but because, in a strange way, I knew she wouldn't care. Or worse, she'd see it as a win. As proof that her open marriage idea had finally gotten me out of my shell. But I wasn't trying to match her step for step. I wasn't playing a game. I was surviving it. Amber showed up again 3 days later. She texted first. Can I come by? I need to talk. There was no flirtation in her words. Just something unfinished in her tone. Like she'd left something behind and couldn't move forward without it. When she arrived, I noticed she looked different. Softer somehow. Her makeup was lighter, hair pulled back into a low ponytail. She wore a long tan coat and carried no wine, no coffee, just a small nervous smile. I let her in without a word. She didn't sit right away, just paced a little, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. I've been thinking about what happened, she finally said. So have I said. Amber turned to face me, her voice quiet but certain. It wasn't just a moment. I know that now. I nodded. It didn't feel like just a moment. She finally sat on the edge of the couch, still tense. I've known Rachel a long time. Longer than I've known myself in some ways. We were inseparable in college. She always had this gravity. Pulled people toward her. Men, women, everyone. I sat across from her. You were part of that pull. I was the pull, sometimes, Amber said, giving a sad little laugh. But lately, I felt like an accessory in her life. Like we're all just props in the Rachel show. I didn't disagree. She looked down at her hands. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about you. And not just in the way you might think. It was deeper. I started remembering things. All the times you stayed quiet at dinners while the rest of us talked over you. All the times you helped carry dishes or cleaned up after parties Rachel hosted like they were staged photo ops. None of that mattered. It mattered to me, she said, more forcefully than I expected. Then softer, and I hated that she never saw it. There was a long pause. The kind that only exists between people who know they're about to cross something again. She looked up. Do you remember our last beach trip? I nodded. The big house in Cape May. Yeah, she said. You stayed inside during the storm. Everyone else went for a walk. I came back early and found you reading in the sunroom. You offered me a blanket. I remembered. Vividly. You looked at me like I was a person, she said. Not a distraction. Not a rival. Not a sidekick. Just Amber. Her voice trembled. I think that's when it started for me. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Why didn't you say anything then? Because she always gets everything first, she said, almost whispering. And I let her. We sat in silence again. This time, it wasn't heavy. It was full. Full of the weight of what had already passed and the promise of what could still unfold. Amber reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. She tapped a few times, then turned the screen to me. Rachel, smiling, wrapped around a man I didn't know. Somewhere upscale. Probably the retreat. Amber watched my face. She sent this to Lena and Brooke. Group chat. Freedom looks good on me, she wrote. I handed the phone back. It doesn't bother you? She asked. It used to, I said. Now I just feel tired. Amber exhaled, stood, and walked toward the kitchen like she'd done it 1,000 times. She grabbed 2 glasses from the cabinet, the ones we rarely used except when Rachel wanted to show off. She poured us both water. I haven't told her about us. I took the glass. Don't. Amber looked surprised. Why not? Because it's not about her, I said. Not anymore. She studied me for a long moment, like she was trying to decide if I meant it. Then she set her glass down, walked over, and sat beside me again. I'm not sure where this goes, she admitted. Neither am I. But I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I looked at her, really looked. Past the history, the connection to Rachel, the complications. I saw the woman who had finally stepped out from someone else's shadow and spoken her truth. You don't have to, I said. She leaned her head against my shoulder. We stayed like that for a long time. No kisses, no rush. Just the quiet comfort of being exactly where we were, not reaching backward or forward. Just being. Later, after she left, I sat in the dark with her words still echoing in my head. You looked at me like I was a person, and maybe that's all any of us really want. Sophie was always the quiet one. In the group, she rarely spoke first, but when she did, people leaned in. Her voice was soft, but confident, the kind that made you listen without realizing why. Rachel used to say Sophie had therapist energy, always observing, never judging. I used to think that too, until I realized Sophie wasn't just listening, she was watching. And she had been watching me. It started subtly. A comment about the new rug in the hallway. Then one about the art piece in the dining room I'd sketched years ago. When Rachel was away on one of her now regular weekend escapes, Sophie stopped by with a bottle of white wine and a paint swatch booklet. I thought you might want help picking new colors for the guest room, she said. Rachel mentioned you were redoing it. Rachel hadn't mentioned anything. I hadn't told anyone about the guest room except Amber, in passing. Still, I opened the door and let her in. We sat on the living room floor, wine between us, the booklets spread out like puzzle pieces. Sophie leaned over a swatch called Misty Sage and glanced up at me with that half-smile of hers. You're different lately, she said. Different how? Calmer. Like you're holding something, but not letting it shake you. I didn't answer. She traced her finger along the edge of the page. Rachel said you've been supportive, that you're handling the transition better than expected. Is that what she calls it? I asked. A transition? Sophie gave a small laugh. It's very Rachel to rebrand her choices. She paused, then looked at me more directly. Can I ask you something personal? You can try. She hesitated, then, why did you agree to it? I stared at her. The open marriage? She nodded. I thought for a moment. Because saying no felt like admitting I'd already lost her. Sophie's eyes softened. You haven't lost you, though? That's obvious. I looked away. I'm not so sure. We lapsed into silence. The kind that's comfortable, not awkward. She sipped her wine, then walked to the guest room and peered inside. You should go with a deep blue in here, she called out. Something grounding. I joined her at the doorway. She didn't move when I stepped behind her. Her voice dropped. Rachel talks about you sometimes, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Not always kindly, she added. She says you're too passive, that you let things happen instead of making them happen. Nice to know she's giving TED Talks about me, I muttered. Sophie turned slowly. We were standing closer than I'd realized. I don't think you're passive, she said quietly. I think you're patient. And patient men are dangerous in their own way. Her words caught me off guard. Not just what she said, but how she said it. Like it wasn't a compliment or a warning, but a confession. She reached past me to turn on the light in the room, and for a second, her shoulder brushed against my chest. She didn't move away. You and Amber, she said, eyes still on the light switch. Is that a thing now? The question hung there, uncomfortably exposed. I took a breath. It's complicated. Sophie nodded slowly, as if she already knew. Rachel suspects. She won't admit it, but she's been asking little questions. Fishing. Is she jealous? She doesn't get jealous. She gets territorial. That hit harder than I expected. Sophie looked up at me again, studying me. She told us, me, Brooke, Lena, that this open thing would make her feel empowered, that it would shake things up. Has it? I asked. She shrugged. It's shaken something. There was a silence again. This one heavier, less comfortable. Sophie looked like she wanted to say more, and then didn't. Instead, she moved back to the living room, gathered the color swatches, and slipped them into her bag. I should go, she said. Didn't mean to intrude. You didn't, I said. At the door, she paused. Her hand rested on the handle, but she didn't open it. Can I be honest with you, Noah? Please do. I've thought about you. More than I should. She turned to face me fully now. And not just recently. Even before this whole evolution experiment. I used to wonder what you were like outside of Rachel's spotlight. I didn't move. Just listened. You're quiet, but you're always there. You see people. You don't use them. Her voice faltered for the first time. Rachel doesn't see that. Or maybe she does, and just doesn't value it. I stepped closer, only slightly. Why are you telling me this now? Sophie's gaze didn't waver, because pretending not to care is exhausting. There was a pause, full of air and heat, and too many things unspoken. I should go, she repeated, softer this time. I nodded. Okay. She opened the door, but lingered. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and hugged me. Tight, grounding, unexpected. I'm not trying to complicate anything, she whispered. But I'm also not going to lie anymore. She pulled back, met my eyes one last time, then walked out. I stood in the doorway long after she'd disappeared down the path. The cool evening air drifted in, and I let it settle over me. Rachel had opened a door she thought only swung one way. But now, her circle, the women she'd shaped and surrounded herself with, had started to shift their orbit. And they weren't circling her anymore. Rachel loved hosting. She didn't just throw dinner parties, she engineered them. Lighting, music, seating arrangements. The right bottle of wine for the right course. The right dress for the right kind of attention. This dinner was no different. In fact, it felt heightened. She called it a little reunion, but I could tell from the sparkle in her eye that it was more than that. It was a declaration, a stage, a performance designed to remind everyone she still held the spotlight, even if the stage beneath her was beginning to crack. Amber was the first to arrive. She wore a simple black dress, understated but elegant. Her eyes met mine the moment she stepped through the door, a flicker of something unspoken passing between us. We hadn't seen each other since her confession, but we'd exchanged a few texts. Careful ones. Thoughtful. Deliberate. Smells good in here, she said softly, brushing past me as Rachel swept in behind her with a glass of champagne already in hand. Next came Sophie, wrapped in a sage-green wrap dress that matched her eyes. She hugged Rachel quickly, but her glance toward me lingered. There was warmth in it, curiosity, maybe even comfort, and a flicker of something else. Something Rachel didn't notice. Brooke arrived 10 minutes late, as always, tossing her coat onto a chair and announcing, I brought dessert, but if anyone's counting calories, you're on your own. She kissed Rachel on the cheek, winked at me as she passed, and poured herself a drink without asking. Classic Brooke, self-contained chaos wrapped in charm. Lena was last. She looked tired, not in the physical sense, but emotionally worn. She gave Rachel a long, unreadable look before joining the rest of us at the table. The dinner began like any other. Laughter, clinking glasses, compliments on the food. Rachel beamed. She'd chosen a gold slip dress that shimmered every time she moved, and she moved a lot. Reaching, laughing, twirling her hair, playing the host with theatrical ease. But underneath the sparkle, something was off. Conversations overlapped awkwardly. Jokes didn't quite land. The warmth felt manufactured, like everyone had read a different script and was trying to keep the play going out of habit. Amber sat across from me. Sophie to my right. Rachel had intentionally separated us, but glances passed anyway. Quiet, meaningful. Halfway through the meal, Rachel raised a glass. I just want to say how much I love this group, she said. No matter what changes, no matter how crazy life gets, you're my people. There were smiles, nods, but they didn't reach anyone's eyes. Then Brooke chimed in. Speaking of changes, heard you're really embracing the new era, Ratch. Rachel laughed. You mean freedom? Exploration? Modernity? Something like that, Brooke said, swirling her wine. Sophie shifted in her seat. Amber's gaze dropped to her plate. Rachel didn't notice. She was glowing, basking in the image of herself as the bold pioneer of their group. You know, Rachel continued, I really think some of you should consider it. It's liberating, like shedding an old skin. Noah and I are stronger for it. That was the moment everything went still. Amber's fork clinked against her plate. Sophie's lips parted like she wanted to speak, then closed again. Lena took a slow sip of her water, avoiding everyone's eyes. Rachel looked at me. Isn't that right, babe? I met her gaze. Held it. You said this would bring us back together. And hasn't it? I didn't answer. Instead, I glanced at Amber. Then Sophie. Their eyes were already on me. Rachel followed the look, and something shifted in her posture. Subtle, like a ripple of doubt, had just disturbed the surface of her confidence. The air in the room grew heavier. Brooke leaned back in her chair and grinned. I don't know, Ratch. Seems like the group's evolving in ways you didn't predict. What's that supposed to mean? Rachel asked, her voice tightening just enough for everyone to hear it. Brooke shrugged, raising her glass. Just saying, Sometimes when you open doors, you don't get to decide who walks through them. The silence that followed wasn't loud, but it was deafening. Rachel's smile faltered. Only for a second, but it was enough. After dessert, people drifted toward the living room, conversation loosening with more wine. Laughter returned, but now it felt fractured. Sophie helped me clear the plates. Her fingers brushed mine when she handed me a dish. The contact was brief, but intentional. "She's watching," Sophie whispered without looking up. "Let her." Sophie glanced at me then and smiled. Not mischievous, not seductive, something deeper, a quiet kind of understanding. Later, Amber slipped into the kitchen under the pretense of getting more wine. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm not the one being ignored anymore," I said. Amber tilted her head. "She's losing them." "She already has." Amber stepped closer, just for a second, like she might say more, but Brooke entered with a smirk. "Are we all pretending this party's still about her?" Brooke asked, eyes flashing. Amber and I exchanged a look. Sophie walked in behind her, quiet as ever. Lena hovered by the door, arms folded, scanning the room like she wasn't sure where to stand anymore. Rachel reappeared a moment later. She scanned us, all of us, and for the first time, she looked uncertain, like the ground under her heels was shifting, like the spotlight she'd always bathed in was suddenly casting shadows she hadn't expected. She smiled again, but it was brittle now. Practiced, fragile, and for the first time in a long time, the room wasn't orbiting her. It was orbiting me. Brooke never did anything by accident. If Rachel was the sun around which the others orbited, Brooke was the comet, wild, fast, and always threatening to break the system apart. 2 nights after the dinner, she texted me. "Drinks. Just us. Don't overthink it." I stared at the message for a long time. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. Brooke had always been watching, from the corner of every party, every retreat. She made flirting look like breathing, but this felt different. More direct. Like she'd waited until the others had stepped forward, Amber with her heart, Sophie with her curiosity, and now it was her turn. I texted back. "Sure. When and where?" "My place. Tonight. 9. There was no emoji, no extra fluff, just an address and an expectation. Brooke's apartment was high-rise sleek, all white walls, black marble counters, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She opened the door barefoot, wearing jeans and a dark gray tank top, her hair loose and wavy. She held 2 tumblers of bourbon and wore a smirk like armor. "You showed," she said, handing me a glass. I said I would. She walked ahead of me into the living room, dropped onto the couch, and tucked one leg under the other. I wasn't sure. "You've been busy." I sat across from her. "If this is about Rachel." "It's not." She waved the thought away. "This isn't about her. It never really was." She sipped her bourbon. "You know, when she told us about the open arrangement, she framed it like an experiment, a power move, and we all nodded and played along because, well, that's what we do." "She's good at selling things," I said. "Too good," Brooke replied. But I started noticing something. The more she talked about freedom, the more it felt like a performance, like she didn't believe it herself. I tilted my head. "And you?" Brooke's smile returned, slower this time. "I don't perform. I test." She leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "And right now, I'm testing a theory." I waited. That maybe the man she's trying to run away from is the one worth knowing. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She leaned back, swirling the bourbon in her glass. "Tell me something, Noah. Do you know how many times Rachel said you were safe? How often she painted you as the calm, predictable husband? More than I'd like." She made it sound like an insult. But I've always wondered what that actually meant. Safe. Like you wouldn't hurt anyone? Like you weren't going to implode at the first sign of trouble? She looked me dead in the eye. "That's not weakness. That's power restrained." I felt something stir, not ego, but a kind of awareness. A reflection of how I'd been changing, slowly, quietly, from the inside out. Brooke stood and walked toward the window, her silhouette framed by the city lights. "Sophie's interested. Amber already crossed the line. Lena's watching you now too, whether you've noticed or not." She turned around. "And I don't like being the last to know. You think this is a game?" "I think Rachel started one," she said. "But you're the only one actually winning it." I stood too, setting my glass down. "I'm not trying to win anything. That's why you are." There was a long moment where neither of us moved. Then Brooke crossed the room, slowly, confidently, and stopped a foot away from me. I'm not curious like Sophie, she said, voice low. And I'm not sentimental like Amber. I don't want to comfort you. I want to understand you. She reached up, gently brushed a wrinkle from my shirt. I want to know what makes them lose their composure around you. The air between us tightened. I stepped back, just slightly. Brooke raised an eyebrow. You're not scared of me, are you? No, I said. I'm just not sure what you want from me. She smiled. Honesty. That's all. Another pause. This one was charged differently. Less dangerous, more deliberate. Then she nodded, almost to herself, and walked past me toward the kitchen. You hungry? She asked. I could eat. Good. I ordered Thai. She poured more bourbon into both glasses and slid one across the counter toward me. We didn't talk about Rachel again that night. Not directly. Instead, we talked about music, about the city, about how people change when they think no one's watching. And slowly, over the course of the evening, I realized Brooke wasn't there to seduce me. She was there to see if she could be surprised. When I left, hours later, there was no kiss. No lingering touch. Just a look, calm, assessing, and a single sentence. You're not who she said you were. I nodded. Neither are you. Rachel didn't ask where I'd been. She was home when I got back, curled on the couch, pretending to scroll through her phone, but watching me from the corner of her eye. How was your night? She asked. Quiet. She smiled without warmth. Good. She didn't press. Maybe she didn't want the answer. But I could tell. Something in her had shifted. The circle was changing, tilting. And for the first time, Rachel wasn't sure where she stood inside it. She'd opened Pandora's box. And now she couldn't control what had come out. Lena was the last one I expected. Not because she was quiet. She wasn't. Not because she was shy, far from it. But because she had always seemed separate, detached from the drama, removed from the little power plays and subtle performances that defined Rachel's circle. She was the observer, the one who watched it all and stayed just out of reach. But that made her the most dangerous one of all. It was a Friday night when she showed up. No text, no warning, just a soft knock on the door around 8:30. I opened it to find her standing there in a black turtleneck and jeans. No makeup, her hair pulled into a simple braid. She looked almost apologetic. Hey, she said. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I stepped aside. No. Come in. She walked in slowly, hands in her pockets, eyes scanning the living room like it had changed since the last time she'd seen it. She didn't sit, just stood in the middle of the room and turned to face me. I've been meaning to talk to you, she said. That's becoming a pattern lately. She smiled, but it faded quickly. I don't know how to say this without it sounding like gossip. Then don't say it like gossip. Lena nodded. Okay, fair enough. She hesitated, then took a breath. Rachel's been mocking you behind your back. The words landed like a soft slap. Not because they were surprising, but because they confirmed something I'd only let myself suspect. She says things like, he's harmless, or Noah's safe, he'll never leave. She jokes about how she's got the perfect setup now. All the adventure she wants without losing the image. I swallowed. And you just decided to tell me now? Lena stepped closer. I wanted to believe she didn't mean it, that she was just venting. But the way she talks about you, it's not frustration. It's contempt. And I couldn't listen to it anymore. I sat down, suddenly tired. Why are you telling me this now, Lena? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the window, looked out into the night. Because I thought you should hear the truth from someone who actually respects you. There was a pause. Then she turned, and her voice softened. She doesn't see you. Not really. But I do. I looked up at her. You've never said that before. I've never had to, she said. You weren't looking to be seen. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, handed her one. Lena took a sip, then leaned against the counter, watching me. I used to envy Rachel, she said. How she could command a room. How people gravitated toward her. But somewhere along the line, I stopped seeing her as powerful and started seeing her as hungry. Hello, I said quietly. Lena nodded. Like no amount of attention could ever fill her. She set her glass down and looked at me. Really looked. You're the opposite. You're whole. You don't need the noise. I exhaled slowly. It doesn't feel like wholeness. It feels like survival. She stepped forward, her voice dropping. I think you've been surviving for a long time, Noah. You just didn't notice. Something about the way she said my name made the room feel smaller. Warmer. What do you want from me, Lena? I want you to stop believing the version of yourself that Rachel sold to everyone. And what version do you believe? She didn't blink. The one who pays attention. The one who doesn't flinch. The one who's been slowly unraveling everything she built, not out of spite, but out of truth. A silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable, just full. She moved first. A small step. Close enough that I could smell her shampoo. Something citrusy, clean. I'm not here to fix you, she said. And I'm not here because of what happened with Amber, or Sophie, or Brooke. I'm here because I've seen who you are when no one's looking. And what do you see? A man who deserved better. A long time ago. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She reached up and touched my face, just once, lightly, like confirming I was real. Then she dropped her hand and stepped back. I should go. You don't have to. I know, she said. But this wasn't about staying. It was about saying what needed to be said. She picked up her coat and walked to the door. Just before opening it, she turned back. She doesn't know, she added. About the others. No one's told her. Yet. Why? Because none of us did it for her. We did it for you. And then she was gone. I stood in the quiet for a long time after she left. It wasn't pride I felt. Or guilt. It was something else entirely. A strange mix of clarity and sorrow. Like watching the final piece of a puzzle click into place, and realizing the image it formed wasn't what you expected. Rachel had built her circle to reflect herself. Beautiful, curated, controlled. But slowly, quietly, it had turned inward. Not around her. Around me. Not because I'd asked for it. Because she opened the door and never noticed the shift. The revolution wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It whispered. It crept. And now, it was almost complete. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It came like a slow leak, the kind you don't notice until the ceiling caves in. And even then, Rachel didn't want to admit it was happening. She kept smiling, dressing up, hosting brunches. But the air around her had changed. The circle was unraveling. The first sign was the silence. The group chat, once a constant stream of inside jokes, emojis, and plans, went quiet. Rachel would drop a message, wine night soon, or thinking Cabo again this summer. And hours would pass with no reply. Then Brooke would send a one-word response. Sophie would like it and say nothing. Lena wouldn't even open the message. Amber had left the chat entirely. Rachel's tone shifted. Her texts to me became clipped. At home, she was short-tempered. She picked fights over dishes in the sink, over laundry left in the basket. She accused me of being distant, of tuning out. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just watched her unravel. It all came to a head at the next dinner, the one she insisted on throwing, despite my quiet suggestion that maybe it wasn't the time. I need to remind everyone who the hell I am, she said as she set the table with polished silverware and gold-rimmed glasses. I didn't say what I was thinking, that maybe they already remembered. And maybe that was the problem. They all showed up. Brooke first, eyes sharp behind a curtain of perfectly styled hair. Sophie followed, unusually quiet, staying close to the edges of the room. Lena arrived next, bringing a bottle of wine she didn't bother unwrapping. Amber came last. No makeup, no explanation. Rachel greeted them all like nothing had changed. Air kisses. Compliments. That radiant, calculated warmth. But no one mirrored it back. We sat at the table, the same table we'd laughed around so many times before. The food was perfect, of course. The wine was expensive. The music, soft jazz, played from hidden speakers in the ceiling. But the air was different. Heavier. Rachel raised her glass. To friendship, she said. No one toasted. Brooke shifted in her seat. Sophie cleared her throat. Lena stared at her plate. Amber took a sip, but didn't look up. Rachel's smile twitched. What? She asked, her voice too bright. Are we not drinking to friendship anymore? I think the definition's changed, Brooke said. Rachel narrowed her eyes. Meaning? Meaning, Lena said slowly. We're not sure which version of you we're supposed to be friends with anymore. Sophie glanced at me, then at Rachel. You wanted honesty. This is what it looks like. I never asked for. You opened the door, Rachel, Amber cut in. Her voice was low but steady. You said we were free to explore, to be bold, to question what we thought we knew. Rachel blinked, stunned. So this is about me giving you permission? No, Sophie said gently. It's about what you didn't notice afterward. Brooke leaned forward, eyes locked on Rachel's. You turned us into spectators of your freedom, but you didn't expect the show to shift focus. Rachel looked around the table, her facade cracking at the edges. So what? You're all just punishing me now? For being honest? For trying something new? No one's punishing you, Lena said. But none of this was just about you. Rachel looked at me then, for the first time all evening. And you? She asked, her voice trembling with something close to fear. You're just going to sit there and let them turn this on me? I held her gaze. You turned it on yourself. That silence that followed was different than any before. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't thick with tension. It was empty, like something had finally been dropped and shattered. Rachel stood slowly. You've all made your point, she said, voice brittle. Enjoy the rest of the meal. She left the table and disappeared down the hallway, the soft click of her heels fading like a retreating storm. The rest of us stayed seated. No one spoke for a long time. Then Brooke let out a long breath. Well, that went better than I expected. Amber gave a weak smile. That's not saying much. I stood and began clearing plates. Sophie joined me in the kitchen. She needed to hear it, she said softly. She won't forget it. I don't think she's meant to, she replied. When I came back into the dining room, the others were gathering their things. No hugs, no drawn-out goodbyes, just nods, small glances, a quiet understanding. By the time I returned to the bedroom, Rachel was sitting at the edge of the bed, her dress crumpled in her lap, makeup smudged, mascara staining the corners of her eyes. You ruined it, she said without looking at me. I sat in the chair across the room. No, you opened the door. I just walked through it. Her shoulders shook once, barely, like she wanted to cry but couldn't quite find the tears. They were mine, she whispered. They were never yours, I said. You just kept them close enough to feel important. She turned to face me then, truly face me. Not as a husband, not as a placeholder, but as someone she no longer understood. You changed, she said. I saw myself clearly for the first time, I replied. And for the first time, she had no response. The truth didn't come out in a dramatic explosion. There was no screaming match, no teary-eyed confession. It started with a ping, a message meant for someone else, a simple mistake. One wrong thumb movement, one blurred moment of distraction. The kind of thing that happens when you're trying to keep too many secrets in too many directions. Rachel sent a photo, a mirror selfie in a hotel room. Dim lighting, her dress partially unzipped, makeup fresh. A glass of wine balanced on the edge of the bathroom sink. Her caption was flirty, casual, familiar, but she sent it to Brooke. Not him, just Brooke. I wasn't supposed to see it. But Brooke sent it to me. No words, no commentary, just the image, followed by a single line. Still think she's in control? I stared at it for a long time. Not because it shocked me, but because it didn't. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. The truth had been humming beneath everything for so long that when it finally surfaced, it just settled. A layer of dust on something already abandoned. The real earthquake came later, when Brooke forwarded it to Amber and Sophie and Lena. Not out of spite, but because, as she put it, she's been playing queen for too long. Let her feel the silence she gave us. What followed was a kind of social implosion. Not loud, not fast, just devastatingly thorough. Rachel's reign ended in whispers. Group dinners were canceled. A planned weekend retreat vanished from everyone's calendars. Invitations dried up. Texts went unanswered. She noticed it all. The missed calls. The quiet exits from the group chat. The way Sophie started declining invites with short, clipped responses. Amber didn't reply at all. Brooke, always blunt, finally told her, "We're done pretending you didn't burn the house down." Rachel unraveled in stages. First came the denial. "They're just busy," she said, pacing the kitchen, coffee untouched in her hand. "Sophie's been swamped at work. Amber's dating someone new." Then the anxiety. She scrolled through old texts like artifacts. She asked me if I thought she should host a girls' night. Something light, fun, low stakes. I shrugged. You could try. She didn't like the way I said it. Next came the paranoia. One afternoon, I walked into the living room and found her on my laptop. Not her own. Mine. She looked up, startled, then defensive. I was just checking something. I didn't ask what. I didn't need to. She was searching for a crack, any hint that what she suspected had already happened. And maybe it had, just not in the way she thought. She assumed betrayal meant I had become someone else. She never considered that the real betrayal was realizing I'd always been someone she refused to see. The final blow came 2 weeks later. Lena posted a photo on her Instagram, an innocuous snapshot from a quiet night, a record spinning on a turntable, 2 glasses of red wine on a table, and the corner of a sketchbook. Mine. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't tagged. But Rachel saw it. She stormed into the kitchen, phone in hand, the photo pulled up like a police file. You were at Lena's last night. I didn't lie. Yes. Her face twisted. You said you were going for a drive. I did. I ended up there. With her? Yes. She let out a bitter laugh. So it's true. All of it. Amber, Sophie, Brooke, Jesus, even Lena. I met her eyes. You opened the door. Her voice cracked. You were mine. No. I said, calm as glass. I was yours to respect. That's what you lost. She stared at me, stunned. Then she turned and walked out of the room. I heard her slam the door to the bedroom. She didn't leave the house for 3 days. The fallout went further than she expected. Friends stopped returning her calls. Casual acquaintances began to pull back, unsure whether they'd be dragged into the gravity of whatever had imploded in her circle. The curated image she'd spent years crafting, the confident, empowered, modern woman who had it all, started to look like theater. Staged, brittle, hollow. People began to talk. Quietly. Not to her, but around her. The only person who didn't speak was me. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just lived. Calm. Undisturbed. Whole in a way I hadn't felt in years. One night, Rachel appeared in the doorway of the living room. Hair damp from the shower. Face bare. She looked smaller. She sat on the edge of the armchair across from me. I ruined it, she said quietly. I said nothing. She leaned forward. I thought I needed more. I thought if I could just open things up, make it less stale, that we could both feel alive again. I turned off the TV. She looked at me. Did you ever really love me? I did, I said. I just didn't know how little of me you were seeing until you stopped looking altogether. She nodded, eyes brimming but not breaking. I don't know how to fix it, she whispered. I didn't offer her an answer, because there wasn't one. Some fractures aren't meant to be mended. Some collapses are necessary, not as punishment, but as release. A letting go, of control, of illusion, of everything that once looked perfect but was quietly rotting underneath. Rachel went to bed alone that night. I stayed in the living room, the quiet thick around me. Not triumphant, not bitter, just still. And for the first time, it felt like the noise was finally gone. It's strange how silence becomes comfortable. Not the heavy, tense kind that fills a room before an argument, but the real kind, the kind that lives in peace. The kind that hums in the background like a steady, calm breath. Months had passed since Rachel and I split. We didn't make it official right away. She stayed in the house for a while, orbiting me like some ghost of who she'd been. We didn't fight anymore. We barely spoke. She floated from room to room, tidying things that didn't need tidying, cooking meals we didn't eat together, pretending something salvageable still lived between us. Eventually, I told her I was moving out. She didn't cry, just nodded, like she'd already mourned it. I packed in silence. She didn't help. I think it would have hurt too much to touch my things, to touch the version of me that had outgrown her. I got a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, a third-floor walk-up with light that poured through the windows in the afternoon, painting long shadows across the wood floors. It felt like breathing room. I filled it slowly. A new couch, second-hand bookshelves. The sketchpad I hadn't opened in years found its way back onto the coffee table. I started drawing again. Nothing profound, just lines, shapes, thoughts. Quiet things. Rachel texted once or twice a week. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. Can we talk? I never responded. Not out of cruelty. Just clarity. My silence wasn't vengeance. It was freedom. She had been loud for so long. Her presence, her plans, her reinventions. And I had been still beneath her noise. Invisible in her glow. But now, she lived with the echo of her own decisions. Her circle had scattered. Amber moved to Seattle. Sophie started dating someone outside the group, an art teacher with quiet eyes and a love for hiking. Brooke got a job in New York and left with no fanfare. Lena and I drifted, not out of resentment, but understanding. What connected us belonged to a specific moment, and we didn't need to stretch it beyond that. We'd all emerged from Rachel's gravity, and she was alone in the center. One Thursday evening, I went to a gallery opening downtown. A friend of a friend had a small show, minimalist portraits, charcoal on canvas. There was wine in plastic cups, jazz in the background, and people milling about, half talking, half watching. I wasn't there to be seen. I was just existing. Then I saw her. Amber. Hair shorter now. Her dress was simple. She looked lighter. She turned, and our eyes met. No shock. No dramatic music. Just a moment. She smiled. I smiled back. She made her way toward me, weaving through the crowd, holding a glass of red. Didn't expect to see you here, she said. Same. We stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by faces we didn't know. How have you been? I asked. Different, she said. Better. Good. A pause. Then, she reached out to me. Rachel. Amber nodded. Apologized. Asked if we could talk. What did you say? I told her I didn't know her that. I nodded. You didn't. She looked around the gallery. Funny. I used to think she was the glue that held all of us together. She was the glitter, I said. Pretty from a distance, but messy once it gets everywhere. Amber laughed softly. Another pause. Then, more quietly. I think you were the center all along. She just didn't realize it. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Amber looked at me, really looked. You good? I am, I said. And I meant it. She raised her glass. To quiet endings. To clean ones, I replied. We clinked plastic cups and sipped. The music shifted. The lights dimmed slightly. The room buzzed with soft conversation. And for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't defined by someone else's orbit. I was standing still, and the world turned, quietly, around me. Rachel would always try to make sense of what happened. I know that. She would analyze it, frame it, maybe even rewrite it in her own mind. She'd call it a phase, a misunderstanding, a betrayal she didn't deserve. But the truth wasn't about punishment. It was about letting her feel the weight of what she threw away. Her mistake wasn't sleeping with someone else. It was underestimating who I was without her spotlight. She thought I was safe. But quiet men carry storms too. And mine didn't explode. It dismantled her, slowly, carefully, invisibly, until she looked around and realized no one was clapping anymore. No one was watching. And the man she thought would always be waiting was already gone.